Are you familiar with the term ride or die? You know, that one person who's just solid. Not the main character, but someone the main character just can't do without. The one who will hop in a jet with you when you feel the need for speed. Or one who will help you complete the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs. Or walk with you all the way to Mount Doom and into the heart of Mordor, no questions asked. They're usually not the flashiest, not the loudest, but when things go sideways, they're already there. And in most cases, those characters don't even get top billing. But when it comes to Transformers, one definite ride or die is best known for the literal shining of her name, taken from a very hard, very shiny metal that helps other metals last longer. Or a pretty dependable web browser. When it comes to any well rounded team, one thing's pretty obvious. Everybody needs a superstar. That one amazing, cool, charismatic, maybe even slightly relatable individual we can latch onto, cheer for, and sometimes even aspire to be. Whether it's a sleek and silent ninja commando, a confident and charismatic space fleet captain, or a short, hairy, angry guy with claws. Something about them just makes them easy to love. But as much as we gravitate towards the star, we all know that there is no I in team. Unless you're Kobe Bryant, who most definitely sees an ME in that motherfucker. A real team works because everyone has a role. And maybe, just maybe, the most important role of all isn't the flashy one. It's the steady one. The old reliable. The one who keeps things grounded. Who handles the less glamorous work in the background so that the superstar can be, well, super. And in the world of Transformers, a franchise full of big personalities, one of the clearest examples of that steady, old, reliable presence has actually been around since 1985. Although I wouldn't blame you if you missed her introduction into the world of robots in disguise. Chromia made her debut in Season 2 of the G1 cartoon in the episode The Search for Alpha Trion, where they not only find Alpha Trion, duh, we also finally got the answer to a question that was probably bouncing around a lot of our pre-adolescent minds at the time. Where in the world were all the female Transformers? Well, as it turns out, they were left behind on Cybertron, and that's where most of this story takes place. We're introduced to a small band of female Autobots operating mostly in hiding while continuing their fight against the Decepticons, who on Cybertron are led by Shockwave. These female Autobots are under the command of Elita 1, and their approach? Guerrilla warfare, precision raids, hit and run attacks on Decepticon Energon supplies. And it's during one of those raids that we first meet Chromia, alongside her fellow fembots Moonracer and Firestar. It's a quick sequence, but their personalities are established almost immediately. Firestar is the dependable worker hauling the Energon without question. Moonracer is the younger, more impulsive one, who grabs a little more than they need and trips the alarm. And Chromia? She's the sensible, quick-thinking field leader, cool under pressure, smart enough to use Shockwave's own firepower to get them out of their sticky situation. From there, the story escalates. Megatron sends reinforcements to crush the female resistance, and their Autobot boyfriends respond by making the interstellar trip themselves. The ever-dependable Chromia is reunited with her then-man, the equally dependable Ironhide. Birds of a feather and all that, I guess. I wonder if it was just a coinkydink that all the Auto boys featured in this episode were red. Anyway, we get one big co-ed battle on Cybertron, which the good guys and girls obviously win. And in the end, the boys head back to Earth and the girls stay behind on Cybertron to continue the fight. It's a pretty straightforward story, and unfortunately it's also the last we hear from Chromia for quite some time. For years, Chromia and company were basically relegated to a G1 footnote. You know, those female Autobots that showed up in that one episode. And when the Autobot RC was introduced in The Transformers, the movie, in 1986, and went on to become part of the main cast moving forward, it really felt like Chromia had been quietly pushed aside. RC became the female face of the franchise, and Chromia? She faded into the background of Transformers history. That is, until the early 2000s, when comic publisher Dreamwave decided it was time to bring some of those forgotten female Autobots back into the spotlight in the pages of their ongoing Generation 1 series. And in doing so, they quietly answered another question that had probably crossed our now slightly older adolescent minds. Was RC really the only female Autobot around? Well, according to Dreamwave, she wasn't. In fact, they took a pretty wild swing with the idea. In their continuity, RC wasn't even truly an Autobot, at least not entirely. She was posing as one. In reality, she was actually a sleeper agent for one of the most infamous races introduced in the original cartoon, the Quintessons. And she was only the beginning of a much larger Quintesson infiltration. Once the time was right, a strike team of female Autobots, RC, Firestar, Moonracer, and Chromia, led by Elita 1, infiltrates the Autobot base on Cybertron to abduct Hot Rod, who's targeted because of his connection to the Matrix. It's an ambitious premise, it adds intrigue, it gives Chromia more to do than a quick Energon raid. There's tension, moral ambiguity, and the promise of something much bigger. Unfortunately, we never got to see where it was all going. Dreamwave collapsed before the story could even take place, reportedly due to financial mismanagement. You know, using company funds to buy sports cars instead of paying the artists and writers who actually produced the books. And just like that, Chromia's second chance at relevance was cut short. With that being said, that brief aborted Dreamwave appearance was apparently enough to put the name Chromia back on the fandom's radar, because in 2005, she resurfaced in a BotCon exclusive box set titled Descent into Evil. This was incidentally her very first official toy, even if it was essentially a retool and recolor of a previously released Energon RC. And since that figure transformed into a motorcycle, well, now Chromia did too. The box set also expanded her story a bit. In this continuity, she was part of an Autobot strike force assigned to destroy Decepticon General Destoros' cloning facility on Cetai Alpha 7. It wasn't a massive spotlight moment, but it was something. And for longtime fans, it was proof that she hadn't been completely erased. Of course, being a BotCon exclusive meant she wasn't exactly reaching a mainstream audience, but apparently it was enough to finally get the attention of Hasbro. So when it was time to bolster the Autobot ranks and add female representation in the second live-action movie, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, Chromia's name was called back into service. Interestingly, RC had originally been considered for the first live-action movie, but was reportedly dropped late in development because a motorcycle-scaled robot was deemed too small. For the sequel, the workaround was simple. Instead of one bike, make three, and have them combine. And so Chromia, alongside RC and Elita 1, became part of the Bayverse motorcycle trio. Now, granted, this version of Chromia was essentially a brand new character, different continuity, and a different personality. Or is that no personality, am I right? But she was a female, and she was blue, and she was finally getting a mass retail toy release. Now, the film itself never explains the trio's shared nature or even showcases their supposed combined form. I mean, does any Bayverse film properly explain anything? But thank God for ancillary comics meant to fill in the many blanks left by Michael Bay. We do get an explanation on how the three biker sisters came to be. Before the events of the movie, a more conventional version of Chromia is killed in action. Her body is recovered by the Decepticon scientist Flatline, who attempts to engineer a tripartite soldier, three bodies sharing a single spark. Using RC's spark implanted into a new body, Flatline resurrects Chromia and Elita 1 in new forms. The three become one as three and three as one, sharing sensations and emotions while retaining partial individuality. It's ambitious, and honestly, it could have been worse. Eventually, they break free, liberate other captives, including a couple of twins, and align with the Autobots. But despite the intriguing premise and very unique design, the trio doesn't do much in the actual movie. They appear early in a high-speed chase, look cool, then largely disappear until the final battle, where both RC and Elita 1 are destroyed. Chromia technically survives. At least we don't see her die, Although, given that they shared a spark, I'm not feeling very optimistic over her final fate. But the fact that she never shows up again in any future live-action movies doesn't exactly bode well for her survival. And with that, Chromia's third attempt at relevance quietly comes to an end. And speaking of the end, what are your plans when you reach the end of this video? Well, here's a suggestion. Why not check out another story? And then another after that, and then another. You get where I'm going with this, right? In case you didn't know, extended watch time is probably the best way to help my channel out. The longer you stay on my channel, the more love the YouTube algorithm throws my way. So keep watching, or I'll just keep me chatting away in the background as you go about your day, yeah? It will be very much appreciated. Maraming salamat. Thankfully, this wasn't a case of 3 strikes and you're out, because on the 4th attempt, in the hands of comic publisher IDW, the original G1 Chromia and her character finally becomes something to talk about. Using these small bits of whatever lore that already existed, IDW reimagined Chromia as a hardened veteran. Chromia specializes in infiltration, sabotage, and high-risk operations. Quiet, precise, and efficient. Personality-wise, Chromia is blunt, very blunt. She doesn't sugarcoat, doesn't waste time on small talk, and isn't overly concerned with being liked. She's what you'd call married to the job. Her role as a security operative isn't just what she does, it's who she is. That makes her incredibly dependable. You know, the exact type of character I described at the start of this story. The one forever loyal to the superstar. And it's here in IDW where the superstar that would come to define Chromia is also introduced. Windblade. Now, as far as Transformers characters go, Windblade is unique in a big way. She was created in 2013 as the first officially fan-built character, designed to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the Transformers brand. Fans voted on her design, her color scheme, even parts of her backstory, and when she entered the IDW universe, she did so as an outsider, a Cybertronian from the long-lost colony of Caminus, seeking to reconnect with her mother planet. Windblade spearheads the mission to return to Cybertron and re-establish contact. And of course, she doesn't go alone. At her side is her oldest, most trusted, most loyal bodyguard, her ride-or-die, Chromia. Which is definitely a good thing for Windblade. Well, sort of, because the Cybertron they arrive at isn't exactly stable. The Great War is over, the Autobot and Decepticon lines have blurred, former enemies are now attempting to build a new government together, a fragile, unstable alliance led by none other than Starscream. Yeah, fun. So, as you can imagine, this is one messy and dangerous political situation for the very idealistic, morally rigid Windblade to step into, and she drives right in, much to the frustration of Chromia. And this is where her major character flaw emerges: deep distrust and overprotectiveness. Chromia does what she was brought there to do. She hunkers down, she stands at her friend's side, she keeps watch, she makes sure Windblade doesn't get herself killed. Which almost happens. An explosion nearly takes Windblade out. She survives thanks to Chromia's quick response, and naturally the first assumption is that the scheming Silver Snake Starscream tried to eliminate a potential political rival. But the real culprit was Chromia. With the bestest intentions, of course. See, Chromia was never thrilled about being caught up in Cybertron's political mess. She wanted to go back to Caminus. But Windblade was unwavering in her mission to help rebuild Cybertron, so feeling cornered and desperate, Chromia staged the bombing herself, hoping that a near-death experience would scare Windblade into returning home. It was meant to protect her. Instead, it cost innocent Cybertronian lives, and here's where things get complicated. Windblade's faith in Chromia doesn't immediately shatter. In fact, fearing that exposing the truth would permanently damage the already fragile relationship between Cybertron and Caminus, Windblade quietly buries the truth. She protects her, which means the loyal bodyguard who would do anything to protect her friend becomes the very person her friend now has to protect, creating a clear fracture in their once pristine friendship. But despite that fracture, Chromia doesn't walk away. She stays. she fights. Through numerous combiner wars and even more political chaos, through guarding artifacts like the Enigma of Combination, Chromia remains exactly what she's always been, the steady one in the room when everything else is on fire. And as tensions rise, Starscream eventually weaponizes the truth about the bombing, using it to blackmail Windblade. And this time, Chromia doesn't hide. She makes a choice. She confesses. Publicly. She takes responsibility for the bombing and allows herself to be arrested. By Ironhide of all bots. And that's the turning point. For a character defined by loyalty, this is her most important moment. Not protecting someone else, not covering something up, but owning her own mistake. Fully. No excuses. Even from prison though, she doesn't stop being Chromia. When Cybertron is threatened by undead titans and the rogue titan Carcer, she breaks out. Not to run, but to save Windblade, who's locked in a mental battle in her mind against Carcer's rampage, literally scaling a titan to reach her friend. Because even after everything, that instinct to protect never goes away. After that crisis, instead of simply locking her back up though, Starscream offers her something else. Conditional pardon in exchange for service, i.e., become a sanctioned assassin with the sole mission of hunting down and taking out Liege Maximo, one of the most manipulative ancient primes stirring up chaos across the galaxy. And Chromia accepts, and her journey pulls her into a cosmic scale conflict. She encounters Maximals, she fights on the edge of Unicron's awakening, and when the Chaos Bringer finally attacks Cybertron itself, Chromia is there, coordinating resistance, organizing defense, and doing what she's always done, standing between danger and everyone else. When the final assault on Unicron happens, she's in it. And when it's all over, when Optimus Prime falls and Cybertron mourns, Chromia stands at the funeral, still there, still steady. In IDW, Chromia finally becomes far more layered than she ever was before. Her defining trait, protectiveness, becomes both her greatest strength and her greatest flaw. She makes a catastrophic decision out of loyalty, owns it publicly, and keeps fighting anyway. And in a way, she ends up staying true to her name. Chrome isn't just shiny, it reinforces, it makes other metals stronger, more resistant to corrosion. It forms a protective layer that keeps rust from setting in, it handles pressure, heat, wear. That's Chromia. She's not the visionary trying to reshape Cybertron, that's Windblade. She's the one making sure that vision survives contact with reality, the steady presence absorbing the pressure, the one standing between her friends and the slow rust of political corruption, war, and compromise. She doesn't always get it right. Again, sometimes her need to protect crosses a line, but she doesn't crack under the heat, and she doesn't walk away when things get difficult. Not because she's perfect, but because, like Chrome, she was built to strengthen the structure around her and help the people beside her last a little longer. And fittingly, along with her friends, Chromia lasts too. Thanks in large part to her revival in IDW, Chromia becomes something of a reoccurring presence in later Transformers media, and through it all, that core of her character stays consistent. In 2018's Cyberverse, her story is a lighter take on the IDW version, but the foundation is the same, loyalty to Windblade. Once again, she's a Camion reluctant to reconnect with Cybertron, but does it for her friend. And when Windblade is left brain dead, it's Chromia who steps forward with knowledge from Caminus on how to restore her mind. Guiding Bumblebee across Cybertron using a psychic tracker, she helps recover fragments of Windblade's shattered consciousness. Even in a kid-focused series, her role remains clear. Protect her first, everything else second. Then in 2020's War for Cybertron trilogy, things come full circle. This time her loyalty shifts back to her original commanding officer, Elita 1. While Optimus Prime and the ARC crew leave Cybertron in a desperate bid to recover the Allspark, Chromia stays behind, joining Elita's resistance on a dying world overrun by Decepticons. It echoes her original G1 setup, fighting on Cybertron while others depart, but with a much darker ending. Chromia fights to the bitter end, helping bring down the Kaon Arena, but is ultimately engulfed in a blaze of glory, a soldier to the last moment. It's a tragic but fitting send-off. Discipline, dependability, mission first. But of course, this is Transformers, and in this franchise, no character is ever truly gone, because while Chromia's story may end on the battlefield in one continuity or fade quietly in another, she lives on where all great 80s characters eventually do. On the toy shelf, where we have stories. Sorry. So, after the aforementioned Descent into Evil BotCon exclusive and a plethora, okay, 3 live-action movie Chromia toys. You know, that odd unicycle design with the huge gun arm. We thankfully got what felt like a proper Chromia in 2014. Fittingly, she was released alongside the very first official toy of her Ride or Die, Windblade, for the Thrilling 30 line. Now, yes, technically, she was once again a retool of RC, this time from the Transformers Prime toy line. But this was a major retool, different silhouette, different vibe. She might as well have been a brand new mold. She transformed into a sleek, futuristic motorcycle that gave off strong Technobot afterburner energy. I mean, I guess that's just what motorcycles look like on Cybertron. The figure was great, and definitely good enough to hang around longer for a couple more re-releases. First with a darker blue and lavender deco for Japan's Legends line, then later as part of the Combiner Hunters 3-pack with Windblade and RC. That version came with an absolutely massive Primeon blade, because if you're hunting giant combiners, you might as well carry a giant sword. Then in 2019, we finally got something that felt truly original. Chromia in the Siege line. This version transformed into a Cybertronian car, closely inspired by her original cartoon model. And speaking of that original cartoon, it's also worth noting that a couple years earlier, her G1 teammates, Moonracer and Firestar, now going by Nova Star, received toys in the Power of the Primes line, alongside fellow background bots from the Search of Alpha Trion episode, now newly christened as Greenlight and Lancer. All 4 shared a core design and gimmick wherein they could now combine with Elita 1 to form the combiner named after the Greek word orthos, which signifies stability, virtue, and moral integrity, Orthia. At first, I was genuinely puzzled why Chromia wasn't invited to the combiner party, but in hindsight, her later Siege release answered that, as in she was meant for better things, or at least a better toy. While she looked similar to her sisters, Chromia got a brand new mold, no limb gimmick attached. She stood on her own. That said, with a little effort and creativity, you can fudge it and slot her onto Orthia as the chest plate. And honestly, having Chromia as the protective chest armor of the team feels incredibly fitting. And finally, to round things off, because apparently third-party companies have yet to get to work on a masterpiece Chromia, is 2024's Legacy Chromia, this time a retool of a G1ified animated Prowl, and which is supposed to be a G1ified version of the Cyberverse Chromia, to I guess go along with the G1ified version of Cyberverse Windblade. And that's a whole lot of G1ification going around here. And speaking of G1ification, have you heard of the original Decepticon made exclusively for the Hypertoon style Transformers Animated, who was eventually brought into the G1 world as well? If you want to know more about the bounty hunter Lockdown, I've got his story here. Or if you want my latest story, I've got that over here. Either way, thanks for watching, and I hope to hear from you in the comments below. Who's your favorite Ride or Die character? Go ahead and tell me your story.